Recently, I saw a buddy of mine, Canon XL, playing a game called Corepunk on live stream. I thought it looked kind of interesting. So it was kind of like a mix of like an MMO, a survival game, and like a MOBA. And I mentally added it to my list of games that I wanted to check out at some point. Fast forward to today, Corepunk gave me an opportunity to be sponsored to check out their game. And I thought, hey, this is actually on the list of games I wanted to check out literally anyway. So two birds, one stone and all that. Now, this is a sponsored video. However, I'm going to be brutally honest in my review of this one because there are things that are very good about this game. There are things that are not so good about this game. It has what I would call potential. If at any point there's something you like about this and you think you want to check it out for yourself, there will be information down below in the description where you can check out the game. So thanks for sponsoring this one, and let's take a look at Corepunk. When you start the game, it's going to have you pick through the different classes. I went with this guy, the Destroyer. I like two-handed melee weapons, and that's what he had to offer. Now you're going to notice it shows you what your abilities actually do, so it's important you pick a class that has abilities you actually like. It's sort of like a MOBA where your character has 4 different abilities, plus there's skills, passives, talents, all these different things that we'll get into in just a moment. But these are your base abilities, and these do not change, so you want to make sure you pick a class that does look interesting to you. Now, I was intrigued by their own description of the game. They say, Corepunk captures that nostalgia magic, bringing back players to the golden age of MMORPGs, reminiscent of the charm and excitement found in classics like old school RuneScape and vanilla World of Warcraft. So they're kind of pulling on my heartstrings. I mean, I have an old school RuneScape PC there. I got a skill cape, etc. These are... They're listing games that I am a fan of, so I was intrigued. Now, there is definitely things in the game that remind me of that concept. It's point to click, for instance. That's sort of like RuneScape, or even like League of Legends, to be honest. And that's where I get the MOBA feeling. You got your 4 abilities down here, plus the point to click movement is like right click to attack as well. And the game's actually not just combat. There are skills as well. For instance, there is mining, logging, herbalism, butchery, mysticism, weaponsmithing, construction, alchemy, and of course, cooking. Cooking is going to be very important for health regeneration. And I say that cooking is extremely important for health regeneration because it reminds me a bit of a survival game sometimes. One of the most brutal aspects of the game is you don't just get passive health regeneration. If you pick the class with a heal or something like that, that was probably a good move because you do need to actually create consumable items or acquire consumable items in order to be able to heal your character. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. How does the game actually start and introduce you into the world of Corepunk? And this part does actually remind me of old school RuneScape. There's a very minimal welcoming tutorial in which you drop in and the man says you broke 1,000,000 laws by being here. Now go sign a newcomer welcome sheet and basically sign into the game. So you're going to go down a tutorial mission that walks you through a couple of the basics, and then you're welcome to the world. It's time for you to free roam. The world has what you would expect from a free roam MMO. There are mobs to fight, there is loot to acquire, and there are quests to do. But this game really does not hold your hand at all or really give you any direction. It says this is a world for you to explore in. Go figure it out. This can both be a double-edged sword of positive and a negative for the game. An example of this would be because the quests do not have just a big flashing indicator and like a giant arrow pointing you where to go and what to do, you find yourself paying more attention to the quest actual dialogue, and it's voice acted, and some of the writing's actually pretty funny. So because you're paying attention to it, you end up kind of enjoying the quest a little bit more. But also because there's no giant arrow telling you where to go, you can spend a large amount of time just figuring out how to finish the quest. Because of this, and the fact that you need to heal yourself after combat, the pacing of the game is very slow. This is not a quick blast through the game, get to max level, then play the game. This is where the journey is really their sales pitch for the game. It's a trade-off. They want you to have to use all the tools at your disposal in order to be able to survive the world. But if I'm being honest with my feedback, I think that this probably needs to be tuned a little bit. The pacing is actually fairly slow and can feel a little bit too much. Now, there are ways around this. You can work on the cooking skill, for instance, like the campfire. I was just in some combat here, so in order to be able to heal, I can use either just eat some bread that I've made up, or I could literally just put down the campfire, click on the campfire, and that's going to help me regenerate. So it's not the end of the world. And the quest, if I actually need a little reminder of what I'm supposed to do, I can click on one of these quests, and they'll give you a little voice line here telling you what to do and where to go. But they do have markers for like all of the NPCs and the different stations in order to do crafting, etc. So I feel like this would be a very easy addition just to add in. You know, they have a quest here that tells me go kill 100 boar into the woods. I don't think it would be the end of the world just to, you know, add a marker showing where the boars are. Now, a whole part of the game we haven't even talked about yet is building out your character, gear, talents, and weapon mastery. The gear is pretty simple. You got a spot for gloves, boots, chest plate, helmets, etc., like you would expect in an RPG. And they actually do have a pretty in-depth talent and weapon mastery system that's going to allow you to continue to build out your character with the decisions you make. You also can level up your skills as you get a level up. I've been putting all of mine into Circle Strike, which is basically like my whirlwind type of attack because I think it's my best move. And I'm going to continue to unlock talent trees as I level up, level 10, level 15. So at this point, you're probably wondering what the combat actually looks like. Let me show you. Okay, here we go. We got some minions coming at me here. Now I got 4 moves. I'm going to use my ultimate to try to ult in there and stun them. Use the whirlwind strike. Get a basic attack off. Try to finish him. Charge in for there. And then we'll just use probably should use the attack buff in the beginning. It's kind of nice is the attack buff gives me more health as well. So it's kind of like a pseudo heal. I can use it, it'll give me more health, but that health will stay even after the buff ends. So it's kind of like a heal. Now you might have noticed some of the loot I got from that was actually gold. So I got 21 gold down there. Throughout the game, you're going to be finding shops. For instance, this lady has a shop and I can buy things like recipes for my skills, or you can straight up buy materials you need in order to create the items. Or some of the shops, we even have weapons and armor for you. So I could get a new weapon if I wanted there. I still have my starting basic weapon. You also notice there are these implants. There's 6 spots you can choose to further customize your character with implants, depending upon if you want things like, you know, health, attack power, spell power, depending upon your build. I went with 5 attack power. I just wanted as big as damage as I could possibly go because I wanted to try to one-shot the mobs in order to save myself health so I don't have to heal as much. And I just went with 1 plus 100 HP. So your character's progression is basically leveling up your skills every time you get a level, wearing better and better equipment, getting your implants and choosing which implants you want. You have your talent tree that you're leveling up, as well as your weapon mastery tree. Then, of course, we have things like consumable in order to give you temporary powers, which you will get through things like alchemy, cooking, etc. Weapon smithing, so that way you can continue to make better and better weapons. For instance, I have a quest right now to literally make an assault launcher, so you can tell there's different types of weapons in this game, depending upon what class you are. You can see this one's required blast medic. I'm obviously playing the destroyer. I'm using 2-handed weapons, so there is the non-combat progression as well. Now, there was something in this game I absolutely did not expect, which is the amount of kind of random adult humor you're going to find in this game. For instance, small joint, transparent leaf, and tissue paper. You can craft just literal joints in the game. There's also like an amount of cursing in the game. They actually straight up just curse. They'll drop F-bombs, and there is some loading screens which just have like gross and pasties in it. So there is a bit of like adult humor, and it's not all like kind of edgy stuff. Like some of the adult humor is more talking about like there's a robot that really likes Bitcoin, for instance. So they're kind of going for like a self-aware, tongue-in-cheek, not so serious style comedy. There's definitely no lack of personality with the people you're going to come across, mixed with voice acting, which is actually pretty good. A lot of these characters remind me almost like Borderlands types of quests where everyone's a little bit over the top, a little bit funny, a little bit on edge, which is honestly needed for the quest lines because the quests can be things like, you know, go kill 5 rats or something like that. So you do kind of want something that's a little bit more over the top for the quest in order to keep it entertaining. But the first time you get hit with an F-bomb or like that loading screen, it does kind of shock you a little bit like, oh, well, I guess this is happening. But then you start rolling with the punches and expecting it in the quest, and you start to have a good giggle out of it. So let's talk about some pros and cons. Obviously, I like isometric type of games. I played a lot of these on the channel. The world is actually fairly large. If you look at the amount of characters, there is a significant amount of characters to talk and interact with. All of them seem to be voice acted from my experience of interacting with these, and they all have their own personalities like I was describing. So the world itself is actually fairly visually appealing. I like the concept that it's not just combat, and they've actually added non-combat skills like mining, logging. I'm a sucker for these style of MMOs where there is progression that is not just, you know, vertical linear combat progression, but there is progression outside of it with other types of skills in which you can invest into. The inventory is quite large, though one of my feedback points would be you end up getting an insane amount of consumables. I'm only level 6 so far in the game, and I have all of these different consumables, and a lot of them sort of do the same thing. Like this is mana regeneration, mana regeneration. These quite rarely do the same thing, mana regeneration for 10 seconds. So you feel like there is some redundancy in the items. And while I do enjoy the combat, I do wish the world had more mobs in it. I find myself mostly grinding quests for experience. However, in open worlds like this, it would be nice to have the option of, you know what I feel like doing? Just killing a bunch of mobs over and over again. But the mob density is not very high, so you end up focusing on the quest line. Luckily, I do find the characters appealing in the game, so therefore that's not necessarily such a bad thing, but it would be nice to have the option due to the pacing of the game. And the pacing of the game is actually a feedback point for me as well. I need 1,700 experience, but some of these quests give me like 150 experience, so it does take quite a while to both finish the quest, plus there's not a thing to show me where the quests are to finish, plus the mob density is low. So you have a culmination of the leveling experience is actually just really slow. I think this is something that should be sped up to keep the player engaged. To be fair, they did say this is a classic MMO experience, and some of the other games they're comparing it against are notorious for the grind and the slow leveling process, though those slow leveling processes in those games typically happen at mid and in-game, whereas in this game, it is a pretty slow grind right from the beginning. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I actually think this game has potential with some of the changes related to consumables, pacing, and mob density. There is something charming about the world of the game. I like the personalities. I like the voice acting and the quests that they have. I really like the design and layout of the world and the graphics of the game, as well as I like MOBA style combat. The game goes to an early access launch on November 26th. It is a game that is in early access, so I am assuming that these points are something that they're going to be hearing in feedback and smoothing out as the game goes out to full release. Or at least I hope so, because there is something quite charming about Corepunk once you get into it. I just think that they need to retune a little bit of the fresh new player experience so that they can enjoy the game for what it has to offer. Pre-orders are open now, which will grant you access starting November 26th. They start at $36, goes up to $68, depending upon what level you're looking for, so I'll have a link for that if you're interested. So thank you for Corepunk for sponsoring an opportunity for me to play the game and take a look at it. You can get early access with the links that will be down below in the description, and I hope you enjoyed this video.